hurts. I'm smiling so hard. Honestly, I have had the pleasure of sitting at this table with Oscar winners and presidents and first ladies. My hands are shaking. It's Phil Collins! It is a huge pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Stop it.
It is. It's so true.
In the vibrant realm of rock legends, where fame is supposed to unite, an awkward encounter between two music icons ignited a feud that endured for years. Paul McCartney, the beloved Beatle, who helped revolutionize popular music, and Phil Collins, the Genesis drummer turned solo superstar who dominated the 1980s. The two should have been natural allies in rock's pantheon. But a seemingly innocent interaction at Buckingham Palace in 2002 during Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee celebrations transformed their relationship from one of admiration to animosity. The Fateful Meeting. In 2002, the two famous musicians met at Buckingham Palace, and things didn't go well. The palace was hosting a big party for Queen Elizabeth's 50 years as Queen. Many British stars were there, including Phil Collins and Paul McCartney. Phil was already very famous. He played drums in Genesis and was successful with his solo career. He'd sold millions of records and was known all over the world. But even with his success, Collins was still a big fan of the Beatles. On this special day, Collins brought something with him, an old book about the Beatles. It was special because it was one of the first copies ever printed. Collins hoped McCartney would sign it for him. He was really excited about meeting one of his music heroes. After all, the Beatles' songs had helped inspire Collins to become a musician himself. The meeting should have been nice. Both men were successful British musicians at a special royal event. But when Collins went up to McCartney to ask him to sign the book, things went wrong. McCartney was there with his wife, Heather Mills, and he didn't treat Collins very nicely. He acted like Collins was just another fan. He turned to his wife and said something about our little Phil being a Beatles fan. This really hurt Collins' feelings. He wasn't just some regular fan, he was also a very successful musician who had sold millions of records. What made it worse was how McCartney said it. His tone of voice made Collins feel small and unimportant. It seemed like McCartney was using his Beatles fame to make himself seem better than others. Collins felt that McCartney was being mean on purpose. After the meeting, Collins' feelings about McCartney changed completely. He used to think McCartney was great, but now he didn't like him at all. These bad feelings lasted for many years, showing how quickly someone's hero can disappoint them. The story became well known in the music world. It showed how even famous people can hurt each other's feelings. The deeper wound.
Down, and there was the Beatles drum kit on stage, and I said, "My God, I get a chill just saying it. I mean, this is them. This is something to do with them." And then they bounded on stage and did "She Loves You" and "Tell Me Why" and "I Should Have Known Better," all the songs that were in the movie. And everybody just screamed, just stood up, screamed.
Which is what you were supposed to do, but you really did.
Exactly, and I'm sitting there like this, watching.
Right.
I was mesmerized.
Behind the surface-level slight at Buckingham Palace lay a more profound story of shattered illusions and hero worship gone awry. Phil, like countless musicians of his generation, had grown up under the towering influence of the Beatles. Their music had shaped his artistic development, with McCartney's innovative bass lines and songwriting genius serving as a particular source of inspiration throughout his formative years. This deep-seated admiration made the sting of McCartney's dismissive behavior all the more acute. For Collins, it wasn't merely about a celebrity being rude. It was about watching a lifelong hero transform into something far more human and flawed before his eyes. The incident exposed a harsh reality about the nature of hero worship in the music industry. Despite his own impressive achievements, from Genesis to his soaring solo career, Collins found himself reduced to the role of a fan in McCartney's presence. The former Beatles' behavior revealed a peculiar phenomenon in the rock hierarchy, the unspoken caste system where Beatles membership granted an almost mythical status, placing its bearers on an untouchable pedestal above their peers. The psychological impact of this encounter ran deeper than mere wounded pride. It forced Collins to confront the gap between the idealized version of his hero and the reality of the man himself. McCartney's perceived condescension suggested a personality trait that Collins would later describe as endemic to their interactions, an awareness of his Beatle status that colored every conversation. creating an invisible barrier between himself and others in the industry. The realization sparked a broader disillusionment for Collins, leading him to reflect on the nature of fame and its effect on human interactions within the industry. The experience transformed Collins's perspective on celebrity culture and hero worship, teaching him a valuable yet painful lesson about the dangers of placing anyone too high on a pedestal. The aftermath. The aftermath of the Buckingham Palace incident rippled through the music industry for years, eventually erupting into public consciousness in 2016 when Collins shared his long-harbored grievances. His revelations to the Sunday Times created immediate waves in the music world, as the story of McCartney's condescension spread rapidly across media platforms. The public was fascinated by this rare glimpse into the complex dynamics between two of rock's biggest names. The media seized on the story with enthusiasm, dissecting every aspect of the encounter and its aftermath. Music journalists and cultural commentators explored the broader implications of the incident, viewing it as a window into the hierarchical nature of rock royalty. The story resonated particularly strongly because it challenged the carefully cultivated public image of McCartney as the affable, down-to-earth Beatle. McCartney's response to the public airing of grievances came in the form of a private email to Collins. While the exact contents remains confidential, Collins's subsequent comments suggest that the message fell short of a genuine apology. Instead, it appeared to be more focused on managing McCartney's public image than addressing Collins's hurt feelings. This half-hearted attempt at a reconciliation only served to deepen the rift between the two musicians. The publication of Collins's memoir, Not Dead Yet, brought fresh attention to the controversy.
I just read Phil's book. I won't call it a memoir. I'm just going to call it what it is, Not Dead Yet. One of my favorite titles ever.
Yeah, we took it up to almost present day. I mean,
Literally.
That's the trouble with autobiographies. Is that where do you stop? You either stop 20 years ago because that was a certain end of an era.
The book provided additional context to the encounter, painting a detailed picture of the psychological impact it had on Collins. Industry insiders who had witnessed similar interactions began sharing their own perspectives, suggesting that Collins's experience wasn't entirely unique in dealings with McCartney. The fallout revealed a fascinating divide in industry perspectives. Some colleagues privately supported Collins's decision to speak out, acknowledging similar experiences with McCartney's perceived superiority complex. Others viewed the public airing of such grievances as unnecessary and potentially damaging to both artists' legacies. The unresolved tension. The tension between Phil Collins and Paul McCartney persists as an unhealed wound in the tapestry of British rock history. Despite McCartney's attempts at reconciliation through intermediaries and the aforementioned email, the fundamental disconnect between the two musicians remains unresolved. McCartney's efforts, viewed by many as perfunctory and image-conscious rather than genuinely contrite, failed to address the core issue of respect that had initially sparked the conflict. Collins's frustration continues to simmer beneath the surface, occasionally bubbling up in interviews and public appearances. The incident has become emblematic of a larger issue in his career, the struggle for recognition as an equal among the rock elite despite his impressive achievements. His continued disappointment reflects not just personal hurt, but a broader commentary on the enduring nature of the music industry. As of now, their relationship remains in a state of cold detente. Neither artist actively speaks ill of the other, but there's no warmth or professional courtesy between them either. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your take on this legendary feud? Let us know in the comments section below.